another episode of Strictly Healthy. Thank you for joining us. And of course, this is the show that does what it says on the tin, which is discusses everything to do with health and what affects us. So things like emotional, mental, physical, financial even. We discuss money issues, anything that impacts our health. And we've been doing a 4-part series, and this is part 3, to do with busting myths, debunking various myths about health. Now, the first episode talked about fat. The second one, we talked about glutathione. And today we are discussing bread. So is bread a foe or a friend? We will be talking again with Patricia Barrowman. Welcome, Patricia. Thank you for joining us again today and sharing your expertise and wisdom regarding these matters to do with health. So now, bread has quite a, it can be controversial and divide people, I suppose. Some say yes, some say no. So we're trying to debunk that today. So what can you tell us, about bread? You found some people have even stopped eating bread as well. So can you delve into that a little bit and share your expertise on that and your knowledge?
I'd be happy to, Linda. Thank you so much for having me back again. And I can't believe this is the 3rd episode already.
Yes.
But this is a favorite topic of mine. So I sort of asked the question now, what's so bad about bread? Because so many people have stopped eating bread. They get some little tummy rumblings. And they think, oh, I got to stop eating bread because all my friends have stopped eating bread. Or I must be gluten intolerant because I have a little reaction when I eat bread. So then they're eating gluten-free bread, which sort of tastes like cardboard. And it doesn't have the nutrients.
Not all of it, but yeah, I know what you mean. Not all of it.
Well, that's good. That's good. But I haven't found anybody that found a gluten-free bread that they absolutely love. So a lot of complaints. But when you think that bread has been a staple for thousands of years, how many times is it mentioned in the Bible? And bread was used in communion before wafers were invented. The breadwinner is the head of the household. Bread is fairly important. And when you think that the Roman and Egyptian armies thrived on bread, you sort of wonder what happened. So I'm looking back, learning a lot over the last few years. Even the collection of Egyptian hieroglyphics that clearly depict wheat growing and the wheat being ground and then made into bread. They've got it looks like big vats of dough. And of course, they're wood-fired ovens baking the bread. And then heaps and piles of loaves of bread that look like they're for sale. And then, of course, eating bread. And then we know that the Roman and Egyptian armies, I think a standing army of 20,000 men had something like 60 tons of wheat grain a day. And there's historical evidence showing the trade routes where the wheat was grown, and some of it was northern Africa, and then it's transported all around because the wheat was so important. But a few stark comparisons. So back in just even the Roman times, they didn't have Monsanto. Their wheat wasn't sprayed with pesticides. And of course, the wheat was stone ground, and a very important distinction because the grain is ripped and torn and it's jagged. So it takes our body's digestive process hours to digest as opposed to the modern bread, which is a few seconds. And then the leaven that they used to make bread, they made themselves. It was a natural yeast. They didn't have Mr. Fleischmann's with his little yeast packet. And then, of course, the bread was left to prove for several days.
Okay. Well, okay. Sorry, you carry on. Carry
No,
on.
it wasn't all instant. It was a lengthy process, and we want everything, like that now.
Instant, yeah, indeed. But isn't that sort of what's some of that sort of bread is still available today? Now that you're talking about that, the ancient style of bread.
Depends what you mean by available, Linda.
Okay.
You have to make it.
Hmm.
You have to make it.
Okay.
Store-bought bread today. I mean, did you know that chickens won't eat white bread?
No, I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
It's like ants won't eat margarine.
Mm.
We talked about
Got to
that.
be
Yeah.
something very interesting there, isn't there?
Well, yes, and so you think, well, all bread's made from flour and water. So then you have to look at, well, what's different? Well, the flour, the flour is huge, and the process is huge. So you must start with organic flour. That's a must. If you're going to eat glyphosate, I can't help you. So organic flour.
Organic flour, okay. I'll
And
make a note.
yes, and we need to insist. I mean, it's pennies difference, but you also want to have flour made from whole grain wheat. Whole grain, not wholemeal, whole grain.
Okay, maybe you can expand on what that really means.
Well, the whole grain means the wheat head is intact, and then it's ground to make flour. So the flour that you and I have used, because we make the same bread, it's organic, but that whole grain, before it's ground, it's sprouted.
Right. What does sprouted mean? Exactly.
It's lightly soaked in water. It's not submerged in liquid. It's misted, so it's just moist, and it sprouts in 24 hours. So that little wheat grain, you'll start to see a little bud emerge from one end, and that's after 24 hours, and then it stops and it's dried out. Now that modifies the starch. That little process modifies the starch so significantly. Diabetics can eat this bread and not have an insulin spike.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And the rest of us can eat all we want and not gain weight.
Well, that's good. That's really good news. Definitely a bread that we want more of.
So then it's dried and it's stone ground for the reasons that I mentioned, because our digestive system needs to do that little workout to break it down and then extract all the nutrients, so that whole grain has the vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that we need, as well as the omega oils.
Good.
And then, of course, we're using the natural starter.
So, yeah, tell us more about the starter, how it works, just so that people understand a bit better.
Well, most crops, if not all of them, have good bacteria on them. We don't see it, but it's there. So we mix the flour and the water, and the natural bacteria come to life. So you leave your flour and water. I cover it with a plate. But after a day or two, it'll start to bubble, and that's a very good sign. Those little bacteria coming to life. So it's a little process of a few days to get a really robust starter. But when it is ready to be mixed into dough, you drop about a half a teaspoon in a little glass of water, and it'll float. It's so full of bubbles, it'll float. Now you mix it with a large amount of flour and water and a little salt. So you've got your dough. Put that in a container with a tight-fitting lid and a little gap at the top, quite a big gap at the top. And over a period of 3 or 4 days, it will rise, and you'll see air pockets, which are gas pockets from the bacteria form. It's a miracle. I mean, it's a whole new world in there. And so that process that you can see is actually modifying the gluten. It's modifying the gluten so much that people who are celiac and gluten intolerant can now eat this bread.
That is quite amazing, and it's good for your gut as well too. I've made this bread before as well too, according to this recipe you said, and it is quite good, quite tasty. Yeah,
Well,
excellent.
it's good for your gut and it's not harmful for your gut. And another thing that transpires in that 3 to 4 day process is it changes the phytic acid into a lactic acid. The phytic acid can stop our absorption of vitamins and minerals like iron and calcium. So now we've got the lactic acid, and then it's a natural prebiotic because of all the fiber.
So what are the benefits then of this type of bread?
Well, you don't have the bad reactions from the commercial bread. I don't think there's a commercial bread that's really fit for consumption. If you read the labels and you see, the first ingredient is usually flour, and then in brackets they'll have calcium, iron, phosphorus, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they had the whole grain flour, they wouldn't need to add anything into it. The label should say flour, water, and salt.
Ah, so down to the very basics, really. Yeah.
The very basics. And then I baked this morning for you.
Oh,
for your listeners.
And
so this is a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
I baked this morning, and I put sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds on mine, mm-hmm. and they're inside as well.
That looks amazing.
I wish your listeners could smell it and taste it.
Yes, yeah. I can almost smell it and taste it from here. I know it's very tasty.
This, just to show your viewers, I shouldn't say listeners, say viewers, this is the inside. Now, traditional sourdough bread has those big holes, those big pockets. And this has smaller ones because of the whole grain flour. It's denser, it's a little heavier. We do mix 50-50 whole grain with a good organic stone ground white. But look, it's just as soft as anything.
It's not like a brick then.
It's not like the doorstops I used to make before I learned how to make it properly. But it's, white bread, if you did that, it would stay squished. And it has elasticity. It's going to be a little chewier to eat. Not hard and rough, but it's fun. Mm-hmm. I think it's just really fun. I sometimes put garlic in mine. Oh, yeah. Caraway seeds give it a great flavor. Chili and cheese. I mean, there's just no end to what you can do to change this up. But look how beautiful that is in there.
That is beautiful. Yeah.
That's all a natural leaven. Mm-hmm. A natural leaven in there.
So if you could run through some of the benefits then of this type of bread.
Oh, the health benefits, not just the taste benefits. Huh?
Yeah, not just the taste benefits, but the health benefits, indeed, yes.
Well, women who eat whole grains weigh less, and I can attest. I mean, okay, so I made that this morning. What you don't see is the bit I've eaten. Half a loaf of bread already today. I don't gain weight from it. And whole grains reduce the risk of metabolic syndrome. Mm-hmm. They substantially lower the risk for type 2 diabetes. A statistic says 13% lower risk of developing gallstones. And I think we know it promotes good gastrointestinal health. Mm-hmm. And wheat bran specifically has a property about it that helps protect against colon cancer.
Really? That's good. That's significant. Yeah.
And, with all the bad press that bread is getting, it's never about sourdough bread. It's like a different world. So I just say, change your bread, change your life. It's got to be all the right components. It's not just because it's flour and water doesn't make it bread.
Okay. So really what we're talking about, because we're debunking myths about bread. So what you're saying is it depends on the type of bread that we use.
The type of
So,
flour
and the type of flour.
and the
So,
process.
okay, and the process. There we go. So bread is not exactly a foe, but it does depend on those things that we just mentioned: the process, the type of flour, and what's being used. So that is really interesting and fantastic.
And
Thank you.
it does have a tangy flavor, maybe a
Mhm,
slight vinegar, maybe a little tartness.
mhm.
And they do say if you can tolerate the tartness, that's a sign that your gut is healthy. It might be starting out, it might be a little too tangy.
Mhm.
So you can cut back on that fermentation process and control the tanginess by controlling the fermentation
Yeah,
process, the fermentation.
it can ferment for about 4 days. Really, is what I think celiacs and gluten
Mhm.
intolerance can manage, because it's broken down the flour and
The
the
gluten,
gluten. The
the gluten.
gluten, by that time it's broken down. So that's really fantastic news. Very good to know that. So if people want to make the type of bread that you're talking about, uh, can you share some information regarding how they can go about doing that?
Well, yes, if they contact me through you, I think they can contact me. We have in-person classes as well as online through lockdown. When we couldn't meet, I was sort of forced to develop an online. So you're in your kitchen using all your equipment, following these steps. So we Zoom and have little chat groups so we can ask questions and show each other pictures of how we're getting on. It ended up being really fun.
Mm,
And so I've taught people in America as well.
nice.
And we
Okay.
have
So,
the flour
so
source here. The flour can be shipped to you. It is the specific flour that we use can be posted to you.
yes, because it is special flour. Really, is what you're saying. Is that that can be used or should be used to make this bread. So that
For the
is really
for the
good.
nutrients, yeah.
For the yes, yeah. Very good. So, thank you, Patricia, for your time and for sharing that bit of information to us. I think that's really interesting and fantastic news. So, of course, let's see, we've discussed, this is part three of what we're talking about with regard to health. And debunking certain health issues. So we talked about fat, we talked about glutathione, and now today is about bread. And next week, the final one in this series, we're going to be talking about gut health, which I'm really interested and excited to find out more about to see what we can learn there. So that's next week, Thursday, same time, 7:30 p.m. GMT or 2:30 Eastern, if you're that side of the pond. But you can work out the time wherever you are. And yeah, thank you very much, Patricia, for your time. And I think I've put the contact details there where you can see past issues at the bottom. It's on Strictly Healthy channel. Just look for Strictly Healthy Show on YouTube and you will get that information. And on Instagram, Strictly Healthy UK, and email strictlyhealthyuk@gmail.com. So you've got all the contact details if you want to find out about Patricia's course regarding how to make this special bread. Please feel free to do that. So that is it. And we'll see you next time, same space.